Here's the 2024 Metro Denver real estate forecast. We have three key predictions in our 2024 forecast that I'm going to summarize here, and then we'll go into greater depth as we move through the video for each of these key predictions. Prediction number one is that the number of homes sold in Metro Denver will increase 10% to 20% over the near historic lows set in 2023. Key prediction number two is that inventory will rise slightly through the year, but still stay below what we consider a balanced level for Metro Denver. And key prediction number three is that home prices will rise 1 to 2% throughout 2024. Now, the key underlying assumption in these predictions is what's going to happen to mortgage rates in 2024. Currently, mortgage rates are running around 7 to 7.25% for a 30-year mortgage, and we expect those rates to fall slowly throughout 2024 and in the year near 6% for a 30-year mortgage rate. Let's start out and break down the key assumption here, because again, the key assumption of interest rates is going to be what drives the 2024 forecast. And if we look at this first graph here, this shows the mortgage rate forecast from several of the major industry players in the mortgage and real estate industry. And you'll see that these forecasts for mortgage rates at the end of 2024 range from a low of 5.75% to a high of 6.5%, with most of the interest rates falling in the 6 to 6.25% range. And we do believe that the interest rates are going to fall around that 6% to 6.25% range by the end of the year. Now, why is that important? Why are mortgage rates driving this forecast? Well, this next chart here shows us why buyers are not buying in the current market, why they've paused their buying decision. And a whopping 72% are saying that they're not buying right now because of interest rates. They're wanting interest rates to fall before they jump into the market. The key thing number two on this chart is the second component, which also ties into interest rates, and we'll explain that a little bit more later, is that inventory. Buyers are dissuaded from buying right now because they don't feel there's much inventory in the market, and there's 34% of the buyers that are saying, hey, we'd like to see some more inventory before we decide to make a buying decision. Now let's put these interest rates though into historical perspective first, because I think that will help understand a little bit of the mentality of homeowners and buyers as they look at this market. And this next chart here shows us the 30-year mortgage rate from Fannie Mae going back all the way to 1971. And what's important to understand from this chart is that the current rates of 7% or 7.25%, depending upon the week, are actually still low by historical standards. The problem is that since 2008 and the Great Recession, we really haven't seen mortgage rates at this rate. Prior to 2008 and the Great Recession, we never saw interest rates dip under 5%. A 6%, 7%, even 8% interest rate was considered a good interest rate prior to 2008, going back all the way to 1971. Now, because of the Great Recession and with the interest rates falling during the Great Recession, buyers now and homeowners are used to having interest rates in the 4s, 5s, even 3s and high 2s, depending upon the term of the loan. And that's part of what's frustrating our market right now and driving our market forecast. And that's what we're going to look at here, is the number of home sales in Metro Denver. And so this chart here shows the prior 12-month home sales. So if you look at this chart, you'll see that typically in the middle section here that's highlighted in red, that we have usually between 38 to 40,000 homes being sold each year in Metro Denver. However, as you look at the far side of this chart, over the last couple years, we've seen home sales drop off drastically as interest rates have moved up. Because again, buyers are not wanting to buy at these higher interest rates and with low inventory because they don't feel there's a lot of selection. And so you can see how it's just fallen off a cliff over the last year and a half, to where now our average home sales our total home sales in 2023 were only 26,480 homes, single family homes. So again, substantially below what had been our historical average, and moving back to levels not seen since the middle of the Great Recession back in 2009, 2010. So again, with interest rates slowing or falling back, hopefully closer to 6%, we should see some more buyers entering the market. And that's why we feel that home sales are going to go up 10 to 20% in Metro Denver compared to 2023. This brings us to prediction number two, which is that inventory will rise slightly in 2024. Now, this sounds counterintuitive that it will only rise slightly, because we just talked about how home sales are at historic lows or near historic lows. And with fewer buyers in the market, you would think that home inventory would be going through the roof in Metro Denver and through the rest of the country because of slower home sales. This chart here actually shows us what's going on with inventory in the Metro Denver market. And if you look, the red line, the dashed red line here, is roughly the historical kind of average since 2014 until we hit the COVID years. So it's around 4,500 homes have been active on the market, which is incredibly low, even by historical standards, going further back. If you look at this chart where we had 22 to 23,000 homes on the market during the Great Recession. But that was a norm, and then you can see during COVID how it dropped way below. But even with markets and the sales slowing substantially over the last year and a half because of interest rates, the inventory levels are still staying below this 4,500 unit level. And that is completely due to current homeowners not wanting to sell their homes. And that's why inventory has not exploded with slower sales, is because we don't have new listings coming on the market. This next chart here helps explain why homeowners are not willing to sell and not listing their homes today. If you look, this breaks down the mortgage rates of current home loans throughout the United States. And you'll see that 22% have less than 3% on their interest rate, 36% have between 3 and 4%, 19% have between 4 and 5. So 78.7%, almost 80% of current mortgage owners or holders have an interest rate of less than 5%. And as they look at refinancing, or not refinancing, but buying a new home and moving into a new home, the thought of paying a 7% interest rate when you have a 3.5% interest rate just is not appealing to most of the homeowners. And so there's this new effect that we're talking about now in the real estate world called the lock-in effect. And the lock-in effect is what home sellers are experiencing, or current homeowners are experiencing. They feel locked into their current interest rate, or handcuffed by their current interest rate, and they're not willing to move. And this chart here just shows the likelihood of somebody, depending upon their interest rate, of deciding to make a move and put their house on the market. And that's why we're not seeing many homes come on the market, because current homeowners, if their interest rate has to be pretty much 4.5% to 5% or higher before they really think it's worthwhile to move with where interest rates are at. So if interest rates do start to come down towards the end of the year, as we expect, we should see a few more homeowners wanting to put their house on the market. And so if that's the case, we should start to see inventory rise and offset the increased buyer demand as well as interest rates fall. This next chart here shows us the number of new listings in the prior 12 months. And this again talks about why homeowners are not putting their home on the market. And again, if you look at this, we're seeing that typically we have 43 to 44,000 homes coming on the market, single family homes coming on the market each year. And again, at the right side of this chart, you'll see as we got into 2022 and 2023, that those numbers just dropped off drastically as far as new listings coming on the market. So there were only 32,000 new listings that came on the market in 2023. And again, it's going to take homeowners, current homeowners, deciding that it's attractive with interest rates to get their home on the market. And so that's where we'd expect, if interest rates fall, we'll see a few more homeowners trying to jump in the market, sell their home, and buy something new. This brings us to key prediction number 3, which is home prices are going to increase between 1% and 2% in Metro Denver in 2024. And we're going to take a look at the macroeconomic forecast for the nation. And again, real estate is local, but I think it's important to look at the national forecast here first to see what's going on nationally, and then talk about why Metro Denver might be similar or different to the national forecast. This chart here shows the expected price appreciation, again by 8 major industry players in real estate. And you'll see these forecasts range from an increase in home prices this year in 2024 of 4.1%, to a low of a price reduction actually of 1.7%. But if you look at the average of these, the average price increase for these 8 different players is 1.5%. And again, based upon the metrics we've talked about with what's happening with interest rates, with what's happening with inventory, and that we don't expect inventory to increase substantially, the level of inventory is really what determines what happens to pricing. If inventory goes up substantially, then we're going to see home prices fall. If inventory drops substantially, then we're going to see home prices rise. And again, just with this gradual increase in inventory we're expecting, that would allow home prices to rise 1 to 2% in Metro Denver for 2024. And again, the macroeconomic conditions nationally do apply to Metro Denver here. There's not anything unusual going on in Metro Denver that would make us think that we will be unique and not follow the trends of the rest of the country in 2024. So again, to summarize with our key predictions for the 2024 real estate market, those are: one, that number of home sales in Metro Denver is going to increase 10 to 20% over the 2023 levels. We expect home inventory to rise slightly, but still not be at balanced levels for Metro Denver. And 3, we expect home prices to rise 1 to 2% during 2024. If you have more questions about the real estate market or what's going on in your specific neighborhood in Metro Denver, please call us at 303-886-3437, and we'll be happy to break down the market in your neighborhood.